Hi! all right, I'll do it. Sometimes he can be so bossy. So I finished my paper and I submitted it, and I'm working on my presentation. So I wanted to do a run through with you guys. It's kind of funny because I told my adult son I'm setting precedents too by speaking. You know, my mother's prison sentence coming up. So it's just, you know, imperative. Drug use and abuse is so huge, and what I find, you know, to be just catastrophic is someone that just, you know, lifelong, you know, drug abuse, refuse to surrender, and, you know, harms their children. So to me, it's kind of like, you know, let's step up and tell the judge, you know, throw the book, right? So here's what I got over here. And remember, this is my words, okay? This is like my heart and soul. I worked really hard on this. So I titled it, Are We Advertising for an Addiction? Drug addiction is rampant right now, and one way that surely may lead to addiction problems is by advertising with commercials promoting drugs in the first place. It becomes an unhealthy habit because commonly abused prescription drugs activate the brain's reward center. It is very possible to develop physical dependence and addiction from the beginning, right? One clear point that is echoed by many experts is the increasing problem that prescriptions, make sure you guys can see me, drugs can bring to not just one but many. Prescription drug abuse can affect all age groups. The prescription drugs most often misused are often the ones that are also too eagerly prescribed. The introduction to addiction can stem from a prescription for opioid painkillers, anti-anxiety, or sedative medicines, and even stimulants like a diet pill too. There are alternatives for remedies in most conditions, like, you know, acupuncture, chiropractic, herbal medicines, you know, massage even. However, in too many cases, it is quite easy to just get a prescription for a pill. The reality of society these days is that the quick fix is usually the first, and most often even the only choice made, leaving the other options less visited. Prescription drug ads should be prohibited because they seem to be more harmful than helpful. They cause physicians to overprescribe medication, and they often give misinformation or worse, misleading to consumers. These advertisements also drive up the cost of medications to even be obtained in the first place. The ultimate effect is that we are creating drug addicts, not only the person prescribed this medication, but anyone else that comes in contact with them. So beginning with the prescription drug advertisements and how they make medication look and sound, you know, spectacular even, leading with these bold statements and the actor or even celebrity they hire to star in a commercial. They're, you know, sexing it up or selling it, right? So for all the things it may do for us, they give us a list of symptoms that a lot of people have, and for many different reasons. Just tell us that this particular drug they're telling us that will help cure all these particular symptoms. While advertising increases drug adherence among existing patients, we also find that among people who initiate treatment because of advertising, their compliance with then a treatment is actually next to none. In addition, the ads promise how effective the medication is and how much better we will feel. Interesting, yet often isn't that on the cue card that they're reading off on the lines? They're memorized or right before the taping of this particular commercial? Did they in fact even take the drug themselves? Of course, they don't actually know if this is the true findings personally, but since they were told to say it, then it must be true, right? So a person can choose to ask for and take a prescription simply because the commercial that aired on TV suggested it. It is concerning how much TV influences even healthcare now, and that prescription drug commercials have become the new route we are supposed to take. Would it be helpful to inform you that prescription drug ads are illegal in most countries except the United States, where they are commonly televised? One of the findings, and now the biggest concern, is that it is more likely because the actor read the lines well, or the famous celebrity who starred in the commercial was the reason why the prescription drug then skyrocketed in demand. The sales for the drug got more popular and became a fad of being taken by consumers far more often than the drug actually becoming popular for a more natural benefit, like it actually having the ability to deliver the healing it promised. No components possibly even in it in the first place. Prescriptions are such a controversial subject. Since patients are trying to feel protected, it is still a drug, but it is camouflaged to be the one they got the okay to take. Viewers even get the pep talk that it is not a recreational drug, even though it is still called a drug, because these special ones have a purpose and are not harmful. Last time, an article was even written about this, most recent concerns, was 2005. It was called "Give Me a Pill for Everything." It begs the same question, though. Are we fostering the creation of a condition and then aligning it with a product? In the meantime, one of them often forgets that it is just as equally important to build awareness for both the condition and the drug we are in fact taking. It is essential to remember how important it is to be certain that you were properly diagnosed, so that it would be reasonably acceptable for you to then begin to pop this pill several times, in the first place. A person must come to the understanding that they should only take the prescribed pill because one, for pain, for instance, only when needed. Like after major surgery, for instance, because one needs it to work when they take it, right? Like we've talked about. Taking any medication, whether prescribed to you or not, in excess, or even when not needed, surely leads you much closer to a problem than a solution. Prescription drug abuse or misuse of any type of drug really includes everything from taking a friend's prescription painkillers or for another person's ailment, or to snorting or injecting ground up pills, to get high. Prescription drug abuse may become ongoing and compulsive, only to find that many of these partaking are even aware of the negative consequences that can come from it. It is often what was advertised to potentially doctor us, or what it can be used for, that can quickly lead one to desire even more than the quick fix it was expected, to deliver. Can you see me in this? I gotta move it around so that you can. My hair's all blowing everywhere. Trying to get this submitted and rehearse it and get ready. So pharmaceuticals are spending more money on marketing the drugs than testing the drugs for safety. They almost sex it up, so to speak, with this persuasion and packaging, plus the alluring promise of how powerful it is, or how it is shown to be better than anything else. Really? Sex appeal in advertising is generally viewed as an effective strategy to attract attention to a brand. The persuasiveness of this approach proves that brands believe it works well. How many animals, though, let alone people, were involved in first being diagnosed appropriately for this so-called drug, and then following, during, and after taking it to come up with these findings? How safe and intense were the measures taken to ensure that it was in fact going to not only be a quality, sustainable product, but that it was going to be safe for patients to take? Never mind the variables like age and pre-existing conditions, or whether the consumer was already on certain medications applied to each of these tests. That probably wasn't done either. Did they spend even a fraction of what they earned in revenue from the advertising and distribution as they did for the research certainty, to then avoid having to follow up with the huge lawsuit campaigns for consumers that took the medication and then had fatal side effects from buying into the promise to get better? Only to get worse? I find it fascinating that cigarette commercials have had a lot of the same mirroring concerns as prescription drug ads. They are now banned for. If cigarette commercials could be prohibited, then I certainly think pharmaceutical ads can be too. It is important to be certain that you were properly diagnosed, so it is reasonably acceptable for you to then begin to pop a pill several times a day, which may not happen when the patient is requesting medication. It is also equally important to follow up on other alternative suggestions from your physician, like physical therapy and changing your diet. It's an insult to suggest that people with less severe symptoms would even be seeking treatment. patients are now running around saying, give me a pill for everything. So now we often get a speech similar to, don't worry, this drug has a purpose. It will fix your problem. Society dictates that a percentage of people say that because they were raised a certain way or believed determines their treatment choices. Would it even trivialize people, view of what a prescription drug actually is? How many times has someone been put on a drug because they were given an actual test themselves that proved it to be accurate or even appropriate to sign off on an advertisement they viewed for a certain cure-all, pill or liquid form? These ads almost certainly have encouraged unnecessary use of drugs, is my point. A large percentage of consumers have also stopped taking the medication prescribed after they began because of the significant amount of side effects that they experienced after the first couple of doses were administered. Wasn't this drug prescribed to help the symptoms they already had and it was supposed to benefit them? So how often are we supposed to accept that when you take a medication that may help for one problem, it's going to cause you another one or even multiple? There's a plane going by. Planes like to wait for me to come out. I'm getting this message out anyway. So are we to understand that much like a fast food commercial you see and begin craving the urges to go get a burger, a consumer who sees a commercial for a drug? You guys hear that? It's like loud. Can go to a local clinic and begin taking the drug because it is just as easy to go get, even though another drug might have been just as effective, or worse, they were never confirmed to actually needing any drug in the first place. It could be PMS or it could be PMDD, right? Have you guys heard of that? Like, it could be this, it could be that. So furthermore, there's also profound evidence to support the push to sell the drug, and too often deny much of the actual fine print with such a small amount of pertinent information included too. It is difficult to narrow down where to place the blame as we begin to see the numbers rise of stroke, death, or some very serious side effect from a drug that was used that was overly promoted and under-evaluated. It is the marketing and the media. How about the pharmaceuticals and the doctors? How can we find a cure for any disease if we can't heal the mindset of today's society and officials? The pattern repeats because right now the focus still sits on pushing or getting the drug and making millions of dollars. And as the statistics continue to rise at alarming rates, it turns out they are proving their method by risking far more lives than actually saving them. Don't forget, some of these people, it turns out, never needed the prescription in the first place. They just thought it was going to help because it was prompted by a dressed-up advertisement or a commercial with a famous person claiming they understood the symptoms listed, making them think this prescription was going to be the end-all, miracle cure. Lastly, I would like to shed some light on an area I feel to be quite compelling. The unintended risks multiply when we start bringing all these unnecessary drugs into the home, because it will surround our children and ultimately lead them also to either exposure or consumption of these easily accessible yet unnecessary drugs. When you stopped taking the prescription drug because you realized it was not working for you or had too many side effects, did you remember to throw it away? You may have gotten the prescription from a health clinic, but you made it easily accessible by putting the drug readily available to anyone that gets their hands on the bottle, or perhaps the baby that you may or may not know you're pregnant with, or the infant you're nursing is now consuming it. The adolescent that you argued with when you saw him sneaking in late or trying things out like vaping or watching a rated R movie, you didn't even think of hiding your medication from. Don't ever be so confident to think they would leave them alone if they saw them sitting on a counter, thrown in your purse, or simply placed in a cabinet. The medicine may no longer be thought to you anymore, but you may have encouraged a habit in someone else. You may have even unknowingly just become a younger generation's supply. So, that's my paper. By all means, please give comments, because it's a big deal that I, wrote myself. And then my presentation is funny because I doing all this at once, but he really does have a plan. It makes so much sense that everything's literally going, oh, put it all together, right? It's like done with paper, done with the class, the school, and then, court, and my book, and, the channel, and it's like, I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, just keep going. I have a plan, just keep going. Be obedient, he says, be obedient. So, obviously I had, some help writing it, but it's all me. So, this I'm not going to read, but I'm working on my, speech skills or whatever, right? So this is what I also wrote. This is like the presentation, the paper is going to be published. So, drug abuse, also called substance abuse, is an illness that is characterized by a destructive pattern use of legal or illegal drugs or medications. The condition affects the person's brain and behavior so much so that they are unable to control the use of the drug to the point that it interferes with their ability to be rational, let alone function. The drug user consumes substances in amounts or with the methods that are harmful to themselves and definitely others. Some of the most commonly used drugs are alcohol, cocaine, opiates, benzodiazepines, cannabis, barbiturates, amphetamines, hallucinogens, inhalants, club drugs, other substances. Any of those things can be used either as recommended, well, not the illegal, obviously, I meant the legal. And then obviously you can abuse anything. You can even abuse, over-the-counter medications if you're on a mission, right? So there are over 190 million drug users around the world, and the problem keeps increasing at an alarming rate, especially among young adults under the age of 30. Drug abuse can cause a long-term damage to the body. Drug addicts who use needles have a greater risk even of having HIV and hepatitis, B and C. People start to use drugs for so many reasons. Most people start with experiment use of recreational drugs out of curiosity, to have a good time, or because friends are doing it. For others, drug abuse begins with exposure to prescription medications from a friend or a relative who has been prescribed the medications, particularly the opiates. Over time, you may need larger doses of the drug to get high, and as drug use increases, it may get extremely difficult to go without the drug and attempt to stop. The drug may cause intense cravings as well as getting physically ill. In 2015, substance use disorder resulted in 307,800 deaths. Okay, highest number from alcohol disorder and substance abuse. Each drug produces different physical effects on the brain. However, repeated abuse of the drug can alter the way the brain functions, including the way the brain feels pleasure. The addicting drug use causes changes in your brain that interferes with the ability to think, to control your behavior, and at the same time send intense impulses to the brain to take even more drugs. See, now that's just a person by itself, but can you imagine if they have children too? Oh my goodness. It is because of this change in the brain that it is so challenging for an addicted person to stop taking drugs. Like many mental disorders, drug abuse has no single cause. Many factors may contribute to the development of drug addiction. The main factors are genetics and environmental. Most people, especially parental abuse is involved, are definitely, when they're into like neglect and, denying family beliefs and exposures and to your peer groups and your children, even encouraging drug abuse. Other factors that may affect the likelihood and speed of developing a substance addiction may include psychological problems. I definitely agree with that. Most people have depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, as well as personality disorders, that they don't want to go and get, diagnosed and treated. Peer pressure, early use of drugs, unstable home environment, poor relationship with parents, inadequate supervision over adolescents' activities, poor treatment in school are all, big risk factors. But that is so not like, let's blame it on that, and this is the reason, and so it makes it okay. Never. The biggest thing you got to do is surrender. Look, I have a problem. I need help, right? Especially, it's not just God. It's not just you. It's your children, too. You're going to affect their lives. Your drug problem is now their drug problem, okay? Most people do not, until it's too late, realize that. Or not realize it, but maybe acknowledge, surrender, accept that. That's the struggle for sure. I personally even know, with past, alcohol issue. So I just know, when you do the work, you learn the material, and then you encourage others, hey, do the work, learn the material. It's all here, right? Symptoms. A regular urge to use drugs daily or even several times a day. Yes, Holy Spirit, I'll add it. Hold on. Reoccurrent substance use that prevents the user from meeting significant daily responsibilities at work, home, or school. Reoccurrent drug use is a physically dangerous situation, for sure. Withdrawal symptoms at every attempt to stop drug use and unsuccessful trial of decreasing or controlling the use of the drug, cutting back on social or recreational activities because of the drug use. It begins to control, all your power. Your powerlessness now affects, everything, even your day-to-day. Continual use of the drug, even though the person is aware of the current physical or psychological problem caused or worsened by drug use, in fact. A need to keep or maintain a supply of the drug, spending more money on the drug even though one cannot afford it, doing things you wouldn't do, such as going to the extent of stealing to get the drug, diagnosis and treatment, ask me how I know, a thorough evaluation that includes an assessment by a psychiatrist, a psychologist, or a licensed alcohol or drug counselor. Treatment. It's all I've ever encouraged, and that's all ever encouraged, right? It's a just surrender and do the work. You can be, better. You can overcome the powerlessness if you want to. You gotta want to. It's maybe required. Sometimes blood, urine, or other lab tests are used in accessing your drug use, but they don't serve a diagnostic test for your substance abuse, but will certainly, show the damage to you that your body has physically taken on, let alone the mental. It is possible to counteract disruptive effect of drug abuse and regain control of your life. The primary goal of treatments is abstinence, relapse prevention and rehabilitation. Treatment options may include chemical dependence treatment programs, detoxification is a big one, and behavioral therapy. Support from friends, family, doctors, support groups, or an organized treatment program may help to overcome drug addiction and stay, drug-free. So, I lay it all out, and I humble myself. I'll never be too prideful. I'm so grateful. I'm grateful for every day. And if I could just encourage even, one other person, to do things differently so that they're healthier, amen to that, right? All right, so enough on that today. Leave your comments below, any suggestions, and I'll talk to you guys later, okay? Bye.